Hey everyone, it's Anna from Love Baby Photography. Today I wanted to show you how to edit this newborn photo. As you might know that I generally try to stick with neutral tones and natural tones. They just work really great for skin tones and I don't know, to me they kind of just look very timeless. Of course I'll still use pop of color if my clients want, but for the most part, this right here is my go-to setup. Anyway, so let's get started. This was a newborn session. This baby was under 2 weeks old. His skin is pretty perfect, just a few little things that I'll show you how to take out, and that's about it. So let's get started. So this image is open right now in Camera Raw. This is where I go to start any of my editing. It's very important to remember to always shoot in RAW, so that way you can then open your image in Camera Raw and apply any adjustments that are needed. I mean, you really could bring an image back to life even if you make, some major mistakes while shooting. Um, so I shot this image with my D600, D610. I have a D600 as well, but I don't currently use it. And it was with my 35mm lens at 3.5. Sometimes I have a hard time catching the right focus, so I can jump between shooting newborns at 2.8 to about like 3.2, 3.5. The ISO is fairly low, and so let's start. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into my camera profile and see what it looks like in neutral. This is my typically go-to setting when I start. So I really like it. I think it works really well. Sometimes you do have to be careful with the neutral when you're working on newborns if they're kind of very pinky or they have a lot of red tones, because it does kind of turn their skin a little bit more reddish. You could really see it right away. The second thing I'm going to do is just bump up the exposure right over here in the basic all the way. I mean, not all the way, all over the image, I should say. So probably we'll go with about, I'll say 40. Then this is becoming a little bit hot over here, and this area it's a little bit overexposed, so I'm going to take the highlights down. So you see what I did? This was 0, and then we took it down, and it's 100 times better. So that's why I say if you're shooting in RAW, coming here in post editing for Camera Raw is just a lifesaver. You could literally correct anything. Okay, so the next thing I typically do is I go to the adjustment brush tool, which is one of my favorite tools, and I will bump up the exposure only in the areas where I think it's needed, which is obviously the best thing about this adjustment brush tool, because you can literally select what you need and work on that particular area. So I'm going to work a little bit on his face, because since there are brown tones over here, it's a little bit darker and a little bit red. But right now we're just gonna brighten it up, and then post editing in Photoshop I will show you how to take out the redness. So I'm just gonna apply it just like this, and then you could see we went from here to here. I'm not changing his skin tone color. I'm just bringing it back to where it needs to be. And like I said, when you're shooting newborns, everything comes into play, because the colors are reflecting over everything, from everything. Like if you're wearing a red shirt, which I strongly do not recommend when you're shooting newborns, you're going to bounce that light into their skin. And then you're going to wonder, hey, why is this kid looking a little bit red or a little bit orange? Because you're reflecting the color off of what you're wearing onto their skin. So um, typically when I shoot, I pretty much go dressed all in black, even though I'll be covered with a million hairs from the flockates and all this wool, but it works best. I don't reflect any colors and it doesn't mess with the skin tones for me. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the adjustment brush tool and I'm gonna go one more time, but this time at like 25. And I'm just going to bump it up here and also catch a little bit of his foot and the one on the bottom and his belly. I think at this point it looks great, so I'm going to go ahead and open it in Photoshop. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is fix this corner. Sorry about that. Fix this corner right here. So the best way to do it is select the clone stamp tool, select an area where you want to clone. So I hit option and the left click and just clone it in, just like that. What else? So I'm gonna zoom in on his face, but also like I said, you know, his skin was great. This is nothing. Some babies have really patchy skin and a lot of baby acne, but he has perfect skin. So I'm using the spot healing brush tool to just remove some of the baby acne that he might have and just um, little white spots and little red spots. Sorry, my voice again today. I'm like having some kind of allergies and just can't get it together. Okay, so what I see is that he has a little bit of a hair over here coming from this wool layer. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the spot healing brush tool and just get rid of it like that. So there's just a little bit left over here, so I'll go over it again and a little bit here. So it works really great for minor things like that. The next thing I see is he has a little hair over here. I think it's a hair. See this little black thing? It looks like it. So I'm going to select my healing brush tool, but I'm going to make the brush much smaller and I'm going to work in smaller areas. Because since the texture and the color is changing so much, if I'm going to drag straight from one side to the other, you're going to see a big difference. Okay, so that was that. I think I'm just going to get rid of this. I don't know if that's part of his eyelash, but I think that was a little hair. This is like zoomed in at 200%. You know, no one's going to look at it this close, so I wouldn't make yourself crazy. That's it. So let's pull back. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is run this action. It just makes it nice and soft and warm. This is free. I believe Aaron Tall sells these actions. I'm gonna go ahead and flatten it, and from the same collection, which is I think called Paint Box, I'm going to go ahead and use Tusk, which is one of my favorites. So it's really just like a vignette. So it just gives you like that fade, you know, around the image, which is great because it just makes it more softer, more dreamier type of look. So I'm going to select my brush tool, make sure that the black brush is selected. If it's not, super easy, just click it off like that. And I'm going to start probably with about like a 35% opacity, and I'm going to brush it off anywhere I don't want the fade to be at. So I try to get rid of it in the front, a little bit to the back, and definitely off the baby. So pretty much just like that. So this was the before, and this is after. So I think it looks really great. And then the next action I'm going to use also within this collection, it's the red remover, Subdue. He has pretty good skin tones, like I've said it all along from the beginning. But just because this side is hitting the brown, it's just giving him a little bit of a red tone. So what I do, the action is open. You have to select your white brush. So you go ahead and change it right over here. You have your brush tool selected, and for this you want to drop the opacity probably to like 15 because you want to start slow. And I'm just going to go ahead and brush it on wherever I think is needed. So that little bottom foot, like those toes look a little bit red. The bottom of this foot was a little bit red. The crease here and just a little bit over there. So this was the before and this is after. Before, after. And even, you know, if you feel like you made a mistake, of course you can just close this, throw this whole thing in the trash and run it again if you want to. Or you can simply drop down the opacity here to as much as you know you want to. So I'm gonna go ahead and just drop it down to 80, and I think that's great. After this, I'm gonna go ahead and run Portraiture. Portraiture is a skin smoothing action, I should say plugin. It's worth every penny. I believe it sells for 180 or 200. But I've heard many people get some discount codes that are available online, so that's always a great option. But it just takes your work from here to way up there, you know, and you don't have to mess with the skin, you know, inch by inch. This just runs the action for you. It's an amazing plugin. So that was the before. This is after. I dropped down the opacity to 70%. You know, he's a boy. I don't want to make him super, super smooth. And I think that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten it. And let me show you in the history. So this is the finished product. And this was the before. So big difference, yet super easy to do. Very simple steps, no secrets. If you guys have any questions about the actions used in this video, about the props selection, the colors, the tones, where I get my stuff, please leave your comments below and I'll be happy to get back to you with as much information as possible. And if you like my videos, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I post educational videos daily, so you'll be the first to know when it's up. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care.